Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Anatoly Slivko, a Soviet serial killer and necrophile, who instilled fear and horror in the town of Novosibirsk between 1964 and 1985. Targeting boys aged 11 to 15, he employed deceitful tactics, luring them into participating in what seemed like innocent home movies. Little did they know, they were about to be ensnared in a web of unimaginable cruelty. Under the guise of reenacting historical events, Slivko would render his victims unconscious, subjecting them to sexual assault, murder, dismemberment, and the desecration of their remains through fire. The extent of his twisted acts was meticulously captured on film, photographs, and diaries, serving as sickening trophies to fuel his pyrophilia and satisfy his dark fantasies. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and put the notifications bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Anatoly Slivko's early life was marked by adversity and hardship. Born on the 28th of December 1938 in Izerbash, Dagestan ASSR, Russian SFSR, he grew up in impoverished conditions as the oldest of two children. The backdrop of his childhood was the Ukrainian famine caused by Stalin's agricultural policies. Slivko's parents had a tumultuous relationship, frequently arguing, and his father battled alcoholism. As a child, he faced various illnesses, insomnia, and the challenges of a harsh environment. War, instability, and poverty overshadowed his early years. During the Second World War, Slivko's father was conscripted into the Red Army, exposing Slivko to the brutalities of the Nazi invasion. He witnessed atrocities and sought shelter in a cemetery, only to be rejected by other children due to his emaciated appearance. Disturbing images of mutilation haunted his memories. In adolescence, Slivko struggled academically, often daydreaming in class and achieving average grades. He discovered his homosexuality and experienced shame, keeping his sexual orientation and erectile dysfunction hidden from his family and a select few friends. Seeking a fresh start, Slivko applied for a scholarship at Moscow State University, but failed the entrance exam. Instead, he embarked on mandatory military service and was stationed in the Russian Far East. There he faced constant mockery and ridicule from fellow soldiers, who found his timid and submissive nature incompatible with military life. Eventually, Slivko was discharged due to health issues before completing his service. These formative years shaped Anatoly Slivko, setting the stage for the disturbing path he would later follow. After relocating to Stavropol Krai, Anatoly Slivko worked as a telephone engineer. His sister introduced him to a colleague named Lyudmila, whom he married in a modest ceremony. However, Slivko's sexual orientation and erectile dysfunction strained their physical relationship. They engaged in intercourse only a handful of times throughout their 17-year marriage, and ceased any intimate encounters after the birth of their second child. Despite this, they established themselves as respected members of the community in Novosibirsk. Anatoly Slivko's erotic fantasies emerged after he witnessed a traumatic traffic accident in 1961. The accident involved a young boy who was fatally injured, and for reasons he couldn't explain, the scene sexually excited Slivko, leading to a powerful orgasm. He became fixated on the suffering and vulnerability of the boy, and the incident triggered a shift in his sexual desires. Slivko described the boy's convulsions and cries of agony as arousing, and he became increasingly focused on incorporating elements of pain and domination into his fantasies. The sight of blood, as well as the boy's uniform, further fueled his desires. He began to develop a fetish for boys' footwear and incorporated it into his sexual fantasies. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in Slivko's life. It awakened his overwhelming desire to engage in physical sexual relations with young males. Prior to this incident, he had repressed his sexuality, but witnessing the accident unleashed a dark and twisted side of him that would have devastating consequences. After witnessing the accident, Slivko founded a youth club in Novosibirsk, ostensibly for young pioneer activities. However, He used it to befriend boys and gain their trust. The first club was destroyed in an arson attack, allegedly by a mistreated boy. Undeterred, Slivko established a new club named Churgid. He organized hiking trips and received praise from parents and local officials. In 1977, he was elected deputy of the city council and honored as a teacher of the Soviet Union. Anatoly Slivko engaged in a series of deeply disturbing experiments involving young boys. He meticulously formed close friendships with boys between the ages of 11 and 15, targeting those who were shorter for their age and wearing young pioneers' uniforms, reminiscent of a tragic traffic accident he witnessed. Slivko manipulated the boys' trust, leading them to participate in what he claimed were controlled hanging experiments, designed to stretch the spine. Prior to each experiment, Slivko would carefully rehearse the hanging scene with the intended victim, purchasing a new uniform for them and shining their shoes. The boys were instructed to not eat for several hours beforehand to prevent any complications. Once the boy was anesthetized using ether, he would place the noose around his own neck and become unconscious. It was at this point that Slivko would engage in deeply disturbing and inappropriate actions. He would strip the boys naked, caress and fondle their bodies, arrange them in suggestive positions, and repeatedly indulge in masturbation, often onto the boys' shoes. The entire ordeal was meticulously captured on Slivko's 16mm cameras, with the footage retained to fuel his perverse erotic fantasies. To deceive the boys' parents, he claimed the videos were meant to be filmed on the stage at his youth club, where he was known for creating amateur documentaries. While some of the initial experiments took place within the confines of Slivko's youth club, known as Churgid, he gradually expanded his horizons, persuading his victims to participate in these horrifying rituals in increasingly secluded and rural locations, away from their parents' knowledge. The emotional and psychological damage inflicted on these young boys cannot be overstated, as their trust was systematically shattered by a man who should have been a mentor and protector. Over 22 years, Anatoly Slivko lured 43 boys into his horrifying experiments. After photographing and filming them, he revived most of his victims, ensuring their silence. But in 7 cases, his violence escalated. Unconscious bodies were dismembered, doused in gasoline and set ablaze, echoing the accident that sparked his depravity. Slivko kept their shoes, pictures, and films as twisted mementos, fueling his fantasies until he craved more. Nikolai Dobryshev, his first victim, met an accidental death in 1964. Slivko dismembered him, erasing evidence except for the shoes. Alexei Kovalenko, intentionally killed in 1965, was reported as a runaway. More victims vanished. Alexander Nesmeyanov in 1973, Andrei Pogasyan in 1975, both tied to Slivko's youth club. Investigations failed to uncover Slivko's involvement. 1980, Sergei Fatniev became his 5th victim, with Slivko indulging in greater sadism. Vyacheslav Kovistik followed in 1984. On July 23, 1985, Sergei Pavlov vanished after mentioning a meeting with Slivko for a home movie. Suspicion grew, and questioning revealed the horrifying hanging experiments pushed by Slivko. Following the disappearance of Sergei Pavlov, prosecutor Tamara Langieva launched an investigation into the boy's absence. Her inquiries revealed that several other boys from the same youth club had also gone missing over the years, often after mentioning participation in home movies filmed by Slivko. While the club's operation seemed legal, Langieva discovered that many members had willingly been hanged and experienced temporary amnesia upon revival. Based on Langieva's recommendation, a search warrant was issued in December 1985 for Slivko's home and youth club. Little incriminating evidence was found at his home, but a locked darkroom at the club contained numerous photographs and films depicting the heinous acts committed against his victims. Knives, axes, rope, rubber hoses, and sawn-through boys' shoes were also discovered, confirming Slivko's shoe fetish. Confronted with the evidence, Slivko confessed to 7 murders and 36 non-fatal hangings on December 28. He attributed his crimes to sexual frustration and claimed the snuff material and paraphernalia provided both erotic stimulation and a release for his internal tension. Slivko revealed that he hoped retaining the photographs and films would prevent future homicides, but over time, the desire to kill and dismember grew stronger. In February and March 1986, he led investigators to the buried bodies of 6 victims. Slivko's trial took place in June 1986. Despite pleading not guilty and claiming accidental deaths, he was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to death. He appealed the conviction, but was unsuccessful. Prior to his execution, Slivko cooperated with investigators seeking insights into the mind, an unidentified serial killer active in the Rostov Oblast, at the time known as the Forest Strip Killer. Slivko provided some advice on how offenders like himself operated in society, but was unaware of the ongoing manhunt for the Forest Strip Killer. Andrei Chikatilo, the Rostov serial killer, was apprehended later, convicted of killing 52 victims. Thank you all for watching and diving into this unsettling story. Comment down on what you think about this case, and what could prevent this from happening in our future. I am Alex, and this was Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe.